My manager smirked while he fired me. "You're useless and a dead weight," he sneered. But as I reached for my cardboard box, my phone rang. It was the global VP, calling from London. A catastrophic system crash was hemorrhaging millions of dollars from the company. "The system is crashing. We're losing millions, Sarah. Fix it now." I sighed in response. "I can't, sir. Dave just fired me for being incompetent." The VP's voice turned to ice. "Put Dave on the line. Tell him he's the one who is actually fired today. Move your station into his office immediately." I smiled, handing Dave the phone while his face turned a ghostly white. It wasn't even 9 a.m. yet, but the day suddenly became hot. Minutes earlier, when Dave sneered at me in his office, he was leaning back in his leather chair. He tossed a thin manila folder across the desk towards me, cementing my firing with the words, "We need forward-thinking engineers, not archaic bottlenecks who refuse to adapt to modern efficiency standards. Hand over your keycard. HR will mail your final paycheck." I stared at the termination papers resting on the glass surface, feeling an intense, freezing cold wash over my mind rather than the panic he so clearly wanted to provoke. Dave was the newly appointed Regional Director of IT for Zenith Financial Group, a massive global firm responsible for processing high-frequency trading transactions for European markets. He possessed no background in computer science, system architecture, or network security. He was a pure corporate climber, hired entirely because he played golf with the regional vice president, and his operational philosophy consisted of terminating senior technical staff to artificially lower payroll expenses, securing himself a massive quarterly bonus. I was the lead systems architect. I had spent the last 6 years personally writing the custom load-balancing scripts and failover protocols that kept Zenith's European trading gateway stable during massive market fluctuations. I knew every single vulnerability hidden within the millions of lines of code because I built the infrastructure from the ground up. Dave despised me because I refused to blindly approve his catastrophic cost-cutting measures. The breaking point arrived exactly 4 days ago during a severe infrastructure planning meeting. Dave had signed a highly lucrative contract with a third-party vendor to implement an automated data routing patch across our primary European servers, entirely bypassing the rigorous testing protocols I had established. He wanted to deploy the patch over the weekend to show the executives immediate progress. I warned him, documenting my severe objections in 3 separate emails, that the vendor's code contained a massive memory leak that would eventually overload the primary server arrays, resulting in a total systemic collapse during peak Monday trading hours. Dave ignored my warnings, accused me of gatekeeping the technology to protect my own job security, and personally authorized the deployment using his executive override credentials. Now, it was Monday morning, precisely 30 minutes before the European markets opened for the highest volume trading day of the quarter, and Dave was firing me to ensure I could not interfere with his supposed triumph. Sitting beside him was Janet from Human Resources, a silent, passive participant who simply stared at her notepad, entirely unaware of the technical apocalypse currently brewing in the server rooms downstairs. "I am not signing a severance agreement that forfeits my right to collect unemployment based on your fabricated claims of incompetence," I replied, leaving the pen exactly where it lay. Dave scoffed, adjusting his expensive tie with a look of supreme arrogance. "Sign it or do not sign it. It makes absolutely no difference to me. Your access credentials have already been revoked. You are legally required to vacate the premises immediately. I will personally escort you to your cubicle so you can gather your personal items. Do not attempt to log into any terminal, or I will have you arrested for corporate espionage." I stood up, completely ignoring the sheer hostility radiating from his posture, and walked out of his office. I navigated the maze of cubicles toward my workstation, fully aware that the trading bell in Frankfurt was about to ring. Dave shadowed me closely, his presence a suffocating reminder of the profound incompetence that plagued corporate management. I grabbed an empty cardboard box from the supply closet and began placing my personal reference books, my framed degree, and my mechanical keyboard inside. Dave stood a few feet away, openly gloating to a passing junior technician about how the department was finally trimming the fat and entering a new era of streamlined productivity. He genuinely believed he had won. He believed he had successfully eliminated the only person capable of identifying his disastrous mistakes, leaving him free to claim absolute credit for the system's performance. He has failed to understand that the system's performance was entirely dependent on the constant, invisible maintenance I performed every single morning. I placed the final item into my box, ready to walk out the front doors and leave Zenith Financial Group to its inevitable destruction, entirely at peace with the knowledge that I had documented every single warning in writing. As I reached for my cardboard box to finalize my exit, the heavy black multi-line phone resting on my desk began to ring with the distinct, urgent tone reserved strictly for emergency executive overrides. I paused, looking down at the caller ID display. It was Mitchell, the Global Vice President of Infrastructure, calling directly from the corporate headquarters in London. Dave noticed the caller ID, and his smug expression instantly deepened into a triumphant grin. "Do not answer that," Dave commanded, stepping forward to block my hand. "Mitchell is undoubtedly calling to congratulate the team on the successful weekend deployment. You no longer work here. I will take the call in my office." Before Dave could reach the receiver, the phone automatically engaged its speaker function, an administrative feature Mitchell utilized during Critical Severity 1 network failures. Mitchell's voice exploded into the quiet cubicle block, entirely devoid of any congratulatory warmth. "Sarah, the European trading gateway just collapsed entirely. We are dropping 60,000 transactions a minute. The latency has spiked to 14 seconds, and the primary load balancers are completely unresponsive. We are hemorrhaging millions of dollars every single minute the market is open. I need you to initiate the manual failover protocols immediately and flush the vendor cache. Fix it now." Dave froze entirely, his extended hand hovering uselessly above the desk, the triumphant grin melting off his face as the sheer magnitude of the disaster registered in his brain. The entire department went dead silent, every single junior engineer stopping their work to listen to the global VP screaming through the speakerphone. I leaned slightly toward the microphone, maintaining a completely neutral, analytical tone. "I can't, Mitchell. Dave just fired me for being incompetent. He ordered me in no uncertain terms to vacate the premises and threatened to have me arrested for corporate espionage if I touch a terminal. I am currently holding a cardboard box containing my personal belongings." A terrifying, heavy silence stretched across the transatlantic connection. When Mitchell finally spoke again, his voice had dropped an entire octave, turning to absolute ice. "Put Dave on the line." I smiled, stepping back and gesturing toward the phone, watching Dave's face turn a ghostly white. Dave swallowed nervously, his hands visibly trembling as he leaned over my desk to speak into the microphone. "Mitchell, sir, I can explain," Dave stammered, his arrogant bravado completely evaporating into pathetic groveling. The vendor assured me the patch was stable. Sarah was being entirely uncooperative and negative about the deployment, so I removed her to streamline the department. We just need to give the servers a moment to process the incoming data load. Mitchell released a sharp, deeply terrifying laugh that contained absolutely no humor. "Give the servers a moment? You arrogant fool. I am currently staring at a diagnostic dashboard showing a massive memory leak directly originating from what I just learned was the unauthorized patch you forced through. You deliberately ignored the warnings of my top architect, deployed untested code onto a live financial network, and then fired the only person on that continent capable of reversing the damage. You just cost Zenith Financial Group roughly $12 million in the last 4 minutes." Dave opened his mouth to formulate an excuse, but his brain entirely failed to produce a single coherent word. "Sarah, tell Dave he is the one who is actually fired today," Mitchell commanded, speaking directly to me through the speaker. "Dave, you are terminated for gross negligence. Forget about receiving any severance package. You will leave your security badge on that desk and walk out the front doors immediately. If I hear your voice again, I will personally direct the legal department to sue you for the financial damages your incompetence just caused. Sarah, drop the cardboard box. Move your station into his office immediately. You are now the regional director. Stop the bleeding. I looked directly at Dave, entirely savoring the total, inescapable destruction of his career. I picked up the phone receiver, taking it off speakerphone to cut off any desperate apologies Dave might attempt to make. Understood, sir. I am logging in now. I dropped the receiver back into its cradle, stepped around Dave's frozen, entirely ruined figure, and walked straight toward the corner office he had occupied just 10 minutes earlier. I did not wait for security to escort Dave out of the building. I walked directly into the massive corner office, sat down in the heavy leather chair, and immediately booted the executive terminal. I possessed exactly 0 time to revel in the promotion. The European markets were in absolute freefall, and the vendor's memory leak was actively corrupting the secondary backup arrays. I bypassed the standard login portals, utilizing a hard-coded backdoor administrative access protocol I had built years ago for catastrophic emergencies. Within 30 seconds, I was inside the root directory of the primary trading servers. The digital environment was an absolute bloodbath. The automated patch Dave had authorized was continuously replicating bad data requests, consuming 99% of the processing power and forcing the financial transactions into a massive, unmoving bottleneck. I immediately severed the external connection to the vendor's routing software, executing a hard kill switch on the corrupted application programming interfaces. I then routed the massive influx of live trading data into a temporary digital holding queue, effectively pausing the transactions for precisely 40 seconds while I systematically flushed the overloaded cache memory. Once the primary servers were cleared of the bad code, I triggered the manual failover scripts, transferring the entire operation to the stable, auxiliary server farms located in Dublin. I watched the latency metrics on my monitor drop from 14 terrifying seconds down to 12 milliseconds. The bottleneck cleared, the holding queue emptied, and the financial transactions resumed their normal, lightning-fast execution. The entire rescue operation took exactly 11 minutes. I leaned back in the leather chair, letting out a long, slow breath as the frantic red warning lights on the diagnostic dashboard shifted back to a calm, stable green. Outside the glass walls of my new office, 2 armed corporate security guards were physically escorting Dave toward the elevators. He was carrying a small plastic bag containing his expensive desk decorations. His head hung low, utterly stripped of the unearned authority he had weaponized against me. The following morning, Mitchell flew into the city to conduct a full post-mortem analysis of the disaster. We sat in the executive boardroom, reviewing the server logs that completely exonerated me and entirely condemned Dave. Mitchell did not simply honor the battlefield promotion he had given me over the phone. He presented me with a massive, entirely rewritten contract. I officially assumed the title of Regional Director of IT Operations, securing a salary that doubled my previous compensation, along with absolute, unquestioned autonomy over all future infrastructure deployments. No middle management personnel would ever possess the authority to override my technical directives again. Dave's fate was precisely as brutal as his incompetence warranted. He attempted to file a lawsuit against Zenith Financial Group for wrongful termination, entirely convinced that his golf course connections would protect him. The corporate legal department responded by filing a massive countersuit for gross professional negligence, presenting my highly detailed warning emails as absolute proof that Dave had knowingly sabotaged the company's infrastructure. Facing total financial ruin, Dave was forced to drop his lawsuit and sign a binding non-disclosure agreement that permanently barred him from ever working in the financial technology sector again. He was blacklisted from every major firm in the city, his reputation completely annihilated by the sheer scale of the millions of dollars he had vaporized in a single morning. I spent the next several years building an incredibly resilient, deeply robust network architecture for Zenith, entirely free from the suffocating interference of arrogant men who valued their own egos over actual technical proficiency. I proved the ultimate, undeniable reality of the corporate world. Titles and expensive suits mean absolutely nothing when the servers crash. The people who truly hold the power are the ones who actually know how to fix the machine,